Welcome, everybody, to another episode of You Don't Know Jack. I'm Dr. Haley Perlus, and I'm, of course, with my co-host, Dr. Jack Groppel.
Hi, everybody.
And it's interesting, Jack and I were just talking about what just happened for me this past weekend. I was in Telluride, Colorado, and presenting for the first time at a yoga festival. And Jack, it reminded me just being immersed in this community of my favorite yoga instructor. And it's actually where I live in Grand Junction, Colorado, part-time. Her name is Linda. She's an owner of a yoga studio called Half Moon. And every class, she gets us into chair pose. So if you're not someone who practices yoga, just think of yourself, sitting in a chair without having a chair.
Hmm.
And your arms are up. And she says every single time she gets us into this pose for the first session of the day, this is the challenge in life you did not choose. But how are you going to choose to stay in it with integrity? And you and I have been talking about this story because I absolutely love it. Because for me, it really drives the lesson home. How are we going to control the controllables? And there's a lot of things we don't control in life. Chair pose when our instructor tells us to go in
That's right.
it. But then while we're in it, how do we control that experience to the best of our ability? How do we control our controllables? And it's something that I think we've all heard, yes, everyone's telling you to control the
Right.
controllables. But what you and I really like to do for this podcast is not just say what to do, but actually explain how to do it, dive
Mhm.
into why it's easy, why it's hard, some of the training methodologies. So what do you think?
Yeah.
Why don't we
Well, as human beings, we want to control everything. I mean, that's kind of the human condition, if you will. We'd like to be in control of everything. And, it's fascinating to me. I'll often, and I'll just use tennis as an example because that's where I spent the lion's share of my career. I've often asked tennis players, any ability level, can you play a great tennis match and still lose? And they go, well, of course I can. Okay. Then how much control do you have over actually winning? And then it really stumps people because they want to have control over winning. And but the thing is, if you really step back, you're only in control of how you think, what's going on in your brain, how you act, how you behave, like how you manage mistakes, and then how you execute. That's it. That's all you're actually in control of. So in tennis, how you think, how you move, how you hit the ball. Done. Done. You're done. I mean, you might get smoked today if you don't do those three. Some people see those three things, they go, oh for 3 or 2 for 3. Well, okay, you're going to struggle today, maybe. If you don't manage mistakes well, if you don't move well, if you don't strike the ball well on a certain, like your backhand's not very good. Yeah, you're vulnerable to lose the match. But whatever you're in control of, that's what you want to really focus on. So the idea of focusing on how you think, how you act, what's going on in your head, your behaviors, and then how you execute to complete the task. That's really what matters. That's it.
I would pop in there that, well, of course, being, having sports psychology and performance psychology is my area. Of course, I believe
Right.
we can control our thoughts, but I do understand that sometimes we have habitual stories, habitual thoughts
Mm,
in our subconscious. So I like to think of it as we may not be able to control, the first thought that's habitual, but we do have 100% control over how long we let those thoughts linger.
right.
We can change our thinking. We can endure in some cognitive reframing. Same thing with our emotions. I mean, we're people who have emotions, but we don't always need to be emotional, like having our emotions spiral out and take control. We
Hmm.
do get to be people with emotions, instead of, so in sports, I say, are you going to be an emotional athlete or are you going to be an athlete who plays with emotion?
Right.
I think one is within our control and one is not.
So, Haley, in your work in sports psychology, have you ever talked to an athlete, and let's say the athlete, male or female, any sport, but they don't manage mistakes well. Maybe they have an anger issue. Have you ever, like in tennis, for example, it's common to see people get angry when they miss a shot. It's common. And I've asked them, and I'd love your thoughts on this as a psychologist. when you have a negative response to missing one shot, when in fact, you know, 4 times 6, 24, you're going to play at least 48 points in a tennis match if you win or lose 6-love, 6-love. But and only 1 point you played poorly on. And you're angry after that point. I've talked to players about this, but I'd love you as a psychologist to talk about what would cause someone to be angry in a situation like that.
Well, making one mistake matter more than the entire match is a distorted thought, right?
Right.
Making that one mistake and we're now
100%.
catastrophizing it. And so
Hmm.
that's distorted thinking, and we do have control over distorted thinking. So that's what we like to look at. And it's all story based. And that's something, that you, storyteller, Dr. Jack Groppel,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
all story based, and then, but from a biological standpoint, just looking at, our initial reaction without the training, I can understand how that one mistake is the trigger, how that one mistake can blow up because we're designed to protect ourselves,
Right.
not designed to achieve. So the protection is, that's that fight or flight and that anger going into that one mistake instead of focusing on the achievement motivation we have, which is how well we've been playing, except for that one shot.
Yeah, it's interesting. When I've worked with younger athletes, I've said, how many of you know the next time you compete, you're going to make a mistake? And everybody raises their hand. I know I'll make a mistake. Sure, of course. And then I go, well, then why would you get angry about it if you already know you're going to make a mistake? And it's so funny to see their response to this. It's like, well, you got a point, but it's the but. It's not the situation, but I know I'm going to make mistakes. And then there's the other side of the coin that you remember, like you're an okay player, but you remember a great shot you hit. And I love that one where people remember the really, really good things they did. And then they'll come off the court and they lost the match, but they say, yeah, but did you see that ball I hit down the line on my backhand at 3-all in the first set? And I'm going, if you remember those kinds of shots, you don't hit that many.
Well, I think
No.
that's why if I change sports, I think that's why all the golf clubs, I mean, they hope for that one shot every golfer can have in one round, just the one shot that will get them to sign up and come back the next day.
Well, they have a phrase that will bring me back tomorrow. They have a phrase, golfers do. That one shot, that'll bring me back tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's true, the idea that, you know, and you know the story of the football players that we had at HPI many years ago, where we had these four mammoth football players, and we told them they had a task, and the task was to run a 9-minute mile out behind our facility. And they thought we were crazy because they were running through the swamp. And as they're getting ready to run, we said, now make sure you watch out for the snakes and watch out for the alligator, but especially watch out for the wild boar. And they're going, what? Yeah, these wild boar have razor sharp tusks and they'll attack unprovoked. So if you encounter a wild boar, make sure you take appropriate action, but you've got to complete the mission. And we had a mission was to touch the white fence. Well, they took off. And as you well know, two of our team members were hiding in the bushes and they made a sound like a wild boar and they screamed and ran back, all the way back to the institute. Now, and we had a video that we used to show. But what drove this home was the next week, we had four elite FBI hostage rescue members did the same thing, very same exercise. But when our team members made the noise in the bushes, they squared off.
Yeah.
They had an attitude, if this is the hand that's dealt me, bring it on. So suddenly you've got the big mammoth men that train to hit people that when they heard the unknown, that was outside their realm. And it was, we used to call it an amygdala hijacking. You can go into that, the science of it. And then the FBI agents who had trained about the unknown, and they had a completely different response. And why don't you kind of talk about that a little bit? Because you did kind of allude to it, I think, when we have that trigger response.
Right. Well, but then you have to train the trigger response.
Right.
So the football players didn't have anything trained for that moment, so that they
Mhm.
reacted, and you said amygdala hijacking, right? So their amygdala, which is responsible for the anxiety and the fear and that started leading and taking control so that they just ran away, fight or flight. They fled.
Right.
And then the other group trained. And what were they trained? They were trained to stop and assess.
They were processing. They
They were
processed very quickly.
correct. And also something that I don't know, something that I use with everyone that I work with is you stop, you assess, and then you ask a question and you train it so that it becomes fast. Like you said, you process very quickly.
Yeah.
What does this moment need from me?
Well, with the football players, there was no processing,
No,
by the way.
no, they
There was no
ran.
processing. They were gone.
They
I
were
mean,
gone.
they were gone.
So they did something that was not necessary. And then they
Correct.
didn't complete their mission. They didn't achieve the goal. They didn't, they didn't follow through.
But I think it's interesting because they hadn't trained, that might have been the right response
Right.
because
Well,
because it was the fear of the unknown. And then I know we're going to talk about fear and how and the role that fear plays in this.
yes. But you put those football players onto a football field,
Oh yeah, very different.
and then that's where they're trained. They're trained in that environment
Yes, and very tough. Yeah, absolutely.
and focused. I wonder if they were on the field and then they heard the sound of a wild boar, if they would just, they would again just stop, assess, because they understand what their job is on that field. And
Yeah,
then,
they might assess differently because of the environment.
right,
Remember, we put them in a swamp,
right,
and we'd already set it up that there were snakes and alligators and lions and tigers and bears. Oh my! I mean, we did that with them.
right, right. It's an interesting thing. So in addition to that, in addition to not having the training, which we will talk about and give some tools and methodologies and
Mhm.
strategies for how to train your ability to control what is controllable. I do think it's difficult to even go there in the first place because I'm going to throw two observations that I've seen and you tell me what you think.
Okay.
I think some people and or all people at some times, because I think sometimes I do it too, even though I do have the training. Sometimes it's actually easier not to focus on what I can control. So I can let myself off the hook a little bit and then say, well, I can't control that because it's the weather, because it's the delay, because it's who's going in front of me to speak. It's because, the question that someone asked. It's the instructor who did this. So it's actually I can give myself a way out.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's positives and negatives to that. Um, because, for example, I was speaking, this large seminar circuit in the late 90s that I was on, and then we were in uh, the Palace at Auburn Hills where the Pistons used to play, and it was sold out. We had 20,000 people. Nobody knew who I was. You've heard the story. And I was following Christopher Reeve and preceding Muhammad Ali. Well, I had this little shtick that I did about product, about this anti-diet kit, but I was trying to find skin fold calipers in the bag that I had. But the stagehand didn't tell me that accidentally he dropped the bag on the way up to the stage. So when I pulled the bag out, I couldn't find the calipers. So here I am in front of 20,000 people, and the directors have got the camera on me, 40-foot screens close up on me, and I can't find the prop. I will tell you, sweat started running down my back. I was going, oh, dude, this is not good. I mean, this is how my brain's going. And I honestly felt you can't fail here. See, there was no easy way out on that. So I'm trying to figure out because what I did, and it turned out perfectly, but I said, I can't find them right now, but they're about like this. And then everybody laughed. But I was able to keep everybody engaged. But for a split second, I was going, oh my gosh. And you die a slow death in that moment because there's nowhere to go. And you got to do something. So what do you do? I mean, so I could see like there, I couldn't escape what I was out of control of.
I disagree with you for a second
Okay.
here because I actually think in that moment you took responsibility. You shifted to what you can control. Whereas
Right.
other people may have not even gone there and then walked off stage upset
Oh,
because
I see. I see what you're saying that where I'm trying to say that I couldn't, I still stayed in control of what I was in control of. I see what you're saying.
you still
Because
had,
I honestly will tell you that in that moment in time, I went through the phrase that we both hate. I literally said, you can't fail. Failure's not an option right now. I know we both hate that phrase, but I know that was going through my brain. You got to figure something out.
See, I just think a lot of people were so afraid to fail
I
instead
see what you're
we're
saying.
so afraid to fail. But if we're going to fail, I don't want it to be because of me. So right then and there, I'm going to be able to say, hey, it didn't work out because so and so didn't get the props ready.
Yeah, and yeah, I didn't have to. You're right. I could have said, the stagehand dropped the bag on the way up here. I'm not able to do what I need to do. You're right. I could have done that, and then it would have been miserable. I mean,
Yeah.
the results would have been terrible.
Yeah. So there are times, I think, when in order for us to conserve, like it's almost like self-protection.
So then, Haley, as a psychologist, is it easier? I think I know the answer, but I'd love your input on this. Is it easier to blame something else or someone else?
I think so, don't you?
I do. I do believe that blaming can be a cop out. There could be a reason that there's like I talk about parents' involvement in youth sport a lot. Parents can be way over involved. But now if you're an adult and you're still blaming your parents for your poor performance if you're playing senior tennis and you're still blaming your parents, I mean, I'm sorry, there's a little bit of a disconnect there.
Yeah, no, but no, there's that blame, but I think the reason we do it is to conserve our ego. It's to conserve our confidence, even though to me that wouldn't be unshakable confidence, which is not the confidence that I want to develop. And if we're going to parents, again, a different example would be, let's say parents are watching their kids and their kids lose, and they say, it wasn't your fault, the other team did this. Or, and I forget about even not your fault. Don't worry about it. You played a great game. It was your teammate that did this, or it was the other team that did this.
Right.
Your coach didn't, there's really, and they do it to protect the self-confidence of their child. We do it to protect
Yeah,
our,
exactly. Exactly. And then there's no growth though.
but growth is risky business.
Growth is very risky business.
Growth is risky business. And so you have to be able to put yourself out there. So in order for you to choose to control what you can, you again have to have a good relationship with failure. You don't want failure. We've talked about this in a previous episode. We don't want failure. It doesn't feel good, but I'm willing to risk it in order to grow and achieve and inspire and be fulfilled and see what this whole life is, what I'm capable of.
Yeah, it's interesting too because some of our people might be in business. They might be doing a lot of professional presentations, for example. When I was doing a lot of public speaking, I would always rehearse the presentation in case the PowerPoint went down. I would I was ready that if the AV didn't work, could I still do the job? Now, why did I do that? Because I was controlling what I was in control of at the time. And then if the AV goes down, but I'm prepared for it, I'm still in control of me, to your point earlier. But a lot of people, they wouldn't prepare like that. Their entire presentation is dependent on the AV. And then if the AV doesn't work, well, what do you expect? I mean, I had no chance. Do you see what I'm getting at?
Yeah, I do. Right.
Again, it's a protection mechanism.
Action mechanism. So one of the ways to elevate your ability to control the controllables or increase your desire to do that is to really look at, like you said, well, be prepared for
Hmm.
things going wrong. And it's
Yep,
funny you mentioned that because when I was at the Telluride Yoga Festival presenting, I mean, everyone's doing yoga, so they don't necessarily need a slide deck. I show up with my wisdom talks with a whole PowerPoint, and there were no
sure.
doctors in the room. So I
There
had
you
to,
go. There
we had
you
to
have
bring
it.
them in, right? So we had to figure it out. And again,
Uh-huh.
I I am veteran enough to know that that can happen, and so you're always prepared. So preparing for these what ifs is one way. But then I also think it's allowing yourself to assess whether you're willing to take the risk and put yourself out there. And then you have, I believe, you're more inclined to control what you can because you're not looking to blame anything else.
Again, I think it comes down to, again, the training and the preparation of what you're in control of. When I did my book launch. we decided that we wanted to do a simulcast, and we were going to take Q&A from the audience, the viewing audience. Now, this was an hour long, and it was a beautiful thing because we got a question from New Zealand, and here I was doing the simulcast from Florida. But in the preparation for the event, I'm constantly, I said, okay, what could go wrong, everybody, in our production meetings? And we had a bank of questions lined up if for whatever reason the simulcast didn't work. And we were going to be asking me questions. So we had questions prepared in case of, so it didn't look like we were ever out of control to the viewing audience. And I think sometimes we don't prepare like that. I think we prepare with the, and I say this with respect, but I think sometimes we use the minimal preparation and we're not ready for those storms when they hit. And the problem is storms will hit. There will be storms.
And the more you prepare, the more you develop confidence. The more you develop confidence, the more you're willing to put yourself out there, the more you're willing to control what you can control.
And you know what's funny? If you've really prepared that well, what happens, and you know me pretty well, Haley, but when something does go wrong, it's almost like you laugh at it. Like you go, well, I didn't see that one coming. And you're fine. You're able to control what you're in control of, but because you've prepared so well, you almost laugh when something does happen that you didn't see coming. And that's the truth. You've seen me do that.
Well, but that's the training too, because now you have trust in yourself.
Well, yeah, no, the idea that things are going to happen, you are going to get the emotional hit in the face. And are you ready for the emotional hit in the face? What could create an emotional hit in the face? You know, in tennis, for example, your opponent could make a bad line call. Now you've got two choices now. You either explode and lose it and blame them for cheating, or you stay in total control of yourself and realize it was 1 point, and maybe you question it so that they know you saw it, but now you stay in total control of yourself because you've prepared for that.
Yeah,
But you don't let that emotional hit in the face take you over.
no. Just this past week, I'll use myself as an example too. Again, it was a yoga practice festival. So, and I was giving a lecture type, a wisdom talk, and someone came into the first one early. Thank goodness. I was happy they came early. And then they realized that this actually isn't a yoga practice, it's a wisdom talk. And so they ended up leaving because they wanted to do a yoga class.
They
And
didn't want
so
wisdom.
they
They
didn't
didn't
want
want
wisdom.
wisdom. I like that. They didn't want wisdom. They wanted
They didn't
yoga.
want wisdom. So first of all, a separate topic, for me not to be able to not to take that personally. They don't know me. They just knew what they wanted. But then in that moment, as people were walking in, I didn't want to start out my wisdom talk and then however many people in the room say, "Oh, wait a second, this isn't a yoga practice," and then people getting up and leaving while I'm, starting to engage in my 3 hour discussion. So I then took what was in my control and as
Hmm.
people were entering,
Yeah.
welcome. I just want to make sure everyone knows that this is a wisdom talk and not a yoga practice. I fully understand that there's lots of options. I just don't want you to be confused and know what you're getting. I'd love for you to stay, but I fully understand if you want a yoga practice. But I did the best that I can to prevent people from getting up in the middle and walking out. I'd rather them walk out at the beginning before I
Right.
even started once I've told them. So again, that was me taking matters into my own hands once I learned what was going on in my environment.
Hmm.
And so that's why I love this. What does this moment need from me? It always puts
I
you
love that.
in a present mindset and it
Hmm.
puts you in the driver's seat. And
Hmm.
then really asking, again, what you can control. But here's the flip side. When we opened this discussion, you talked about the tennis athletes that you work with who think that they can control the outcome, they can
Hmm.
control the win, right?
Hmm.
That's also a challenge for why we're not always able to control the controllables. So one, if we all remember, is the looking outside and not willing to risk it and not willing to put ourselves out there. So it's easier to blame others so we can stay comfortable. But then
Hmm.
on the flip side, I think we're trying to control the things we can't control and we're
Oh, yeah.
neglecting the things we can.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I used this example. Um, you've heard of flow state, of course. And
Oh
for
yeah.
those, and Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, say that 10 times fast, his work.
Mm,
So flow state has 9 characteristics. And one of the characteristics is that you have a you have this sense of control, even though you're not actually trying to be in 100% control.
hmm
And so I gave an example again, just this weekend it was yoga. So one thing that I love to do, I don't get to do it often, but what I love to do is do yoga on a stand-up paddleboard. And so when I go and visit my family in Canada in the summer and my parents are on the lake, I go and practice yoga on the yoga board and I do a headstand. And so I showed this picture and I talked about how I would love to control the wind. I would love to control the waves. I would love to control, all the boats flying around me. Like I want so, badly to make sure that I could put my board, right where, the wave is going to catch it at a certain time. But those are all things that are constantly moving. The wind is coming and then going and changing directions. The waves are going to be different if it's just the wave or it's a boat wave. So there's all these things that I'm trying to manipulate, but I really can't manipulate because every a second later it's going to change. But what I do have control over, for me, when I do a headstand, and I'm on my forearms, I do have control over exerting my effort, putting my energy into pushing on my forearms so that I'm not sinking my shoulders and my whole body isn't resting on my neck. So I'm, pushing through my forearms and I'm tightening my core. And then that allowed me to control my body, which then gave
mm,
me a sense of control over the waves and the wind.
mm.
Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
it does. Now, I'm trying to be one of our listeners right now,
And see me
and
upside down.
knowing that you have been a competitive at a high level alpine skier, there had to be times when you're going down one of these incredibly steep slopes and you did not feel in control.
Just once or twice.
Well, or am I wrong? Am I smoking something and that you were in total control all the time?
Definitely not in total control all the time.
Okay. Help our audience understand that because I
Yes,
think that's a really good example.
yeah, it's the same thing. You're trying to control the entire race run, how you're going to hit that rut, how you're going to hit that gate, how you're going to
hmm
prepare. And um, there are snow conditions that vary. But again, if I'm trying to control all the external factors, I'm actually wasting a whole lot of energy and wasting a lot of time. This is a
Right.
timed event. But if I then give myself, one or two cues, quiet upper body, feel that front of the boot. Go for a feeling of that ski before you let it go, before you let it switch and go to the next side, the next turn.
I hope everybody's listening right now because these intricacies are so critical because you are talking about what you're in control of and you're thinking.
Yeah,
I
technically,
love this.
yeah,
Keep going.
technically, tactically, strategic, pinching at my hip. All of those,
Technically, tactically, strategic. I love that. See, the three
yeah,
things.
yeah, those three things. But then the coolest thing about it is that when I do control those three things, technical, tactical, strategic, it actually allows me to feel like I'm in control of the mountain.
Voila. And that's exactly what we're at today.
Well, it's to be able, and this would be a really good exercise for you to grab a pen and paper because I tend to like pen and paper
hmm
and to make 2 columns and create a situation for yourself. You're about to give a presentation. You're going to go for a practice in sport. You're going to go and do a workout. You're going on a date, whatever it might be. You're getting together with your friends. And just for a moment, just get a piece of paper, get 2 columns. What's within my control? What's not within my control? And it is only within your control if it is tactics, techniques, and strategies.
Yeah.
It is, well, what did you say at the beginning? It's behaviors,
Well,
story.
it's how you think, how you act, and how you execute
Yeah,
that you can start thinking. So it's the behaviors, it's the thinking, and the execution of the task at hand.
right. So as you go through that column of things that I can control, if they do not satisfy that criteria,
Right.
throw them on the other side of throw them on the other side, the other column of things you cannot
That's a good way
control.
to look at it. That's a really good way to look at it.
And then when you're looking at the column of what you can control, I believe that we need confidence because, again, this is risky business, controlling what you can control. So then it's a great idea to maybe look at your past and use your past to create your best future and give yourself
Right.
confidence. When was I when was I able to do that before? And it worked. Or look at a model, look at a mentor, look at a leader. When have they done something like this that I can learn from and grow from? So now you're coming from it from, okay, now I'm not trying to control what I can't. Now I understand what I can. And I'm asking myself to find some confidence, to find something to believe in. And then I absolutely love, I use it probably in every single individual coaching now that I have is what does this moment need for me? I'm working with a professional golfer and she had tremendous success round one and round two of a 3 round day or a 3 round tournament. And she just texted me and she said, this is my intention for tomorrow. Before every single shot, I'm going to ask myself, what does this next shot need from me?
Hmm.
And that is what I'm measuring success on because that is the only thing this golfer can control.
Love it.
What does this next shot need from me? And then she had a very good result after that as well with the scoreboard. But she achieved what was within her control. And then guess what? She gets to use that confidence and feel in more control next time.
Now, I love it. I love it. So, Haley, what do you think are, I love that exercise of journaling and writing down. Um, as far as our listeners, when they're paying attention to this right now, so what would be your to do as far as training your mind? If when we sign off, what's the first thing someone could do if they say, I really need to pay attention to controlling the controllables?
I think it's that exercise. Don't look at your whole life.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's key.
Yeah, don't look at your whole life. Don't look at this is the start of forever.
Yeah.
Just right now, in the day that you're having, figure out one, just choose a situation, choose an experience that you're living today. Maybe
Yeah,
it's,
your golfer, for example, she's not looking at the entire round even.
yeah,
She's not looking at the hole. She's looking at this one shot.
right,
And I think that's key for everybody listening right now.
right, absolutely. So now you can either go back and kind of recreate what already happened today, or you can look ahead at the rest of your day and choose a moment that you're going to be encountering, choose a moment that you're going to be living. And whether you go backwards or forwards, it doesn't matter. Make that 2 columns. What's within my control for that particular situation? What's not within my control for that particular situation? And then test yourself. Were you right? Look back at that control list. What is within your control? Is it tactics? Is it technique? Is it strategy? Is it about how I'm thinking? Is it about how I'm behaving? And if it isn't, if it has nothing to do with that, it doesn't fit the criteria. You got to move it over to the things you cannot control. Now we can't use it as an excuse. It's not within your control.
I love that. I hope people in the comments will ask us and let Haley know how that works for you. Because we would love to hear your feedback on being able to use this training.
Mhm. Yeah, because now you have a list in front of you of the things that you can control, and you don't have to control all of them. This is also very important. When I was ski racing, it's not like I looked at every single piece of every single technique, tactics, and strategy that would totally break my flow up. That's not rhythm. But what you can do is choose one. And sometimes you choose the one that you're more comfortable with, or sometimes you choose the one that will have the biggest bang for its buck. So, like all the
Yeah.
others will come. Or maybe you are someone who feared things first. You kind of want to go for one that you've not attempted to control before.
And I think you're so spot on with that to keep it small because we tend to catastrophize things. Like it's a bad day outside, it's bad weather outside, and we start catastrophizing. The human brain just is not our best friend. You've heard us, we've said that before on this podcast. So, gosh, I think this is just wonderful. I hope everybody does this. So I would just encourage everyone to follow Haley on social media. Her book is Personal Podium. My book is my memoir that came out this year, Mountains Within. If you like this kind of training, we recommend that you contact Evolve Leadership. You can follow them on LinkedIn or contact them because we're both affiliated with Evolve Leadership, and we'd love to see you be involved in this with this type of training.
There'll be more training to come.
Can't wait. So
Well,
great to see all of you.
bye everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your day.